This is Lisa Tucker, host of The Book Cover, which showcases local literary personalities. So listen to The Book Cover on the Borderline. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover. Hi, you're listening to The Book Cover on the Borderline. I'm Lisa Tucker. Today, my author of note is Karl Tuira. Karl, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. I was hoping to come up to the Sioux, but things happened the wrong way, so I will be up there again.
Well, no worries. This is what the phones are for. And I hope your dog gets better.
Thanks.
Yeah, I hope how old?
Oh, well, it's 3.5 years of dynamite chocolate labs. So
okay.
Coming along just fine. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm glad. They're smart animals, I understand.
Well, she thinks she's smarter than I am, which is probably true, you know.
I love it. So we're going to talk about your body of works, but first I want to hear, you didn't have, so your day job, I guess, that you retired, you didn't start writing until you retired. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. I retired in 2009, and then I started writing books. And first, what I did is I wrote 4 books on the family as such for each of my kids, my wife's 2 parents and my 2 parents. And so I wanted to pass on the information that I'd collected because I'm a history buff and a genealogy buff, and I've been collecting stories from the family since I was little. And I just wanted to put that down and get it passed on. So.
And so those are the books that aren't for sale. Those are the books you just have for family.
This is correct.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting in that there's 1 book on my dad who was from Finland, and 1 book on my mother who was from Finland on the Karjala side, and then there's 1 book on my wife's mother who was actually a United Empire Loyalist, and then my wife's father who was Scottish Lowland Clearances people.
Oh, wow. So are most of your books historical and like nonfiction?
They're all nonfiction. Yes, I did give a go at a fiction, but I gave up very early, so they're all nonfiction.
That's too bad because the Finn and the Icelandic and the Nordic fiction is so hot right now.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So if you were to do something, I'm sure you would get picked up by.
Well, we could call one of the books fiction,
Just change a couple of names and it's fiction. So your first book that you did to sell to the public,
yep.
Not just for family and not just for personal. Which one was
Yep.
that one? Is that the Karjala?
That was the Karjala Story, and,
Right.
and the reason for that is that I came across some papers of my dad's when he died, and he'd written memoirs on his boyhood in Viipuri and his youth as such. And so I translated those, and then I started to write even more. And because of the fact that Karjala is a part of Finland that was lost to Russia during World War II, and It's on the eastern border of Finland. And it's a very little known place, truly. I couldn't find a single book in English on it, never mind a full book in Finnish on it.
Right.
And I am fluent in Finnish, so I could do that. So as a result of that, I wanted to put forward the story of Karjala, and I wrote it from prehistory to after World War II. But in that, I also put in all the family stories and followed the family through the history from 1500 on through to after World War II. And so I just wanted to pass that information on to whoever else in the world as such.
Whoever's
and it is
interested,
totally nonfiction in that I even went to original manuscripts as such, and all sorts of Finnish nonfiction books and fiction books, but so it's totally nonfiction, and also includes memoirs that my family had written.
What a beautiful tribute.
Yeah, it's 520 pages and took me 5 years.
Oh, listen, don't worry about that. I'm on year 7 of mine, and I'm only 10,000 words in. So, so you're doing really well. You're
So
doing
yes,
really
that
well.
was my first book,
Yep.
and yeah.
And then your second was the second one, The Art of Robert Ralph Carmichael.
You're quite right on that, and that happened because of the fact that I grew up in Sylvan Valley, of course, and then Bob Carmichael moved into the valley, as it turned out after I had left and so on, and him and Gwen set up their home there. So I got to know them fairly well as such because I went home at least once a year to the valley every year for, I was close to 50 years now. And so I would pop in and see Gwen and Bob, and basically because of the fact that I originally wanted Bob to paint, do a painting of my homestead up there, because I'd taken all sorts of photos and never could get a good one. And so as a result of that, we developed a relationship and continued on through the years. And, you know, we talked a little bit about myself doing a book on himself and his art when he was still alive. That never came about, but when he died, his widow, Gwen Keatley, said, "Okay, Karl, why don't you do that book on Bob and his art?" And so that's what I did, and it took me about a year to do it. But the beauty of it all was that not only did I know Bob and Gwen, and not only had I seen his painting on the canvas in his studio, etc., but Gwen also provided the full archive of his paintings, of his photographs, as well as all sorts of newspaper clippings, etc., and also the stories that she herself could say about, you know, this is how that painting came about, etc. And
Right.
so she requested that I do it, and I was more than happy to give it a go, even though that I'm not an art professional, although my wife would say I'm an art addict because I collect a lot of art. but, but then as part of that book as well, he had a good friend that I knew, David Arant, who used to be the curator of the museum, Roma Museum, or art gallery rather, etc. An art historian and notes, so I pulled him in to do some official art perspective, as well as Miriam Bouchard, who wrote up some stuff on his show, at the Art Gallery of Ontario, and even some of the original show books that he did for that was done on him for the Winnipeg Art Gallery, and that was in his early years in 1976. So, together with that expert artistic impressions and perspective, I wrote the rest on the chronology of his life,
Mm-hmm.
and also all the photos. And I chose the photos to be put in there. And there's 100 photos of his paintings in there, including his coins and drawings, and even the seriographs and the murals, like in the center in athletic center of that well-known Sault Ste. Marie sportscaster. There's a mural in that stadium, and also there's a mural in the water tower in the bistro that he did. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And what he's known for, really, what he's best known for, everybody's has got art from Robert Ralph Carmichael in their pockets.
Yes, that's true. The loonie.
In the form of the loonie. So he designed, and a more iconic, I mean, the fact that our dollar coin has a nickname, I think, is so, it makes it personal. And he did a good job with making that coin. He captured Canada in that coin.
Well, that is very true. But the other aspect of him is that he was a fantastic painter as such, and he painted representational surreal works, still life, landscapes, and that was his true love. And he was happy to have done the coin. As a matter of fact, he did many other coins, about 10, 20 other coins. But his true love was his painting, and that is the area that should have got him more esteem than it did. But he painted up in Sault Ste. Marie, and there's not too much exposure up there to the art community, which is usually in the bigger cities. So.
Well, that's changing. Karl, that is changing. We've got some more inclusive art galleries opening up, and more. We've got this great store that just opened up. It's called The Artesian, and it has all locally made, so locally authored books, jewelry, clothing, pottery, woodworking, art on the walls. It's amazing, actually.
Fantastic.
You're going to have to stop in and bring some books next time you're in.
Well, I might even go shopping up there, but I'm not sure whether I'll tell my wife that.
No, yeah, you should definitely not tell your wife, because she will
No, we have no room on the walls for paintings or anything. I have some of my paintings here in my studio in my den on the floor.
Well, I don't know what to say. Buy a bigger house. That's what will have to happen.
I'm very happy, and I'm sure if I find something gorgeous up there and unique and personal, because for me, the art, getting a reproduction of the art is very, very nice. But the true piece, it has that artist actually putting that information in and that concept.
I love real art, because when you look at the brush strokes and you can see the brush strokes, it adds such a big dimension that you don't get with a print.
No, it is very true, and so that's good to hear. But so that's how the Carmichael book came about, and so I was overjoyed to do it. And for that one, I actually decided that I would bite the bullet and spend thousands of dollars and get it officially, formally designed, etc., and put together. So. Well, I did all the content. The design was done by the book design, and set up and everything was done by Rose Campbell of St. Catharines down here. So.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, this is kind of a special book. It's just not words; it's images.
This is true.
Yeah. So are the pages glossy?
Yes, they're glossy.
They are. Oh, that's nice.
They're glossy and it's available. All my books are available through Amazon, but they're available through a print-on-demand organization out of the States and elsewhere, and you just order them through Amazon, etc. But they only have a certain quality, and it's a very good quality as such. But I actually did a little limited edition one of about 20, 30 books that were super glossy.
Super, yeah, and those are probably very expensive to create and produce.
Yeah.
But that's where you get the best representation of the art.
Yeah, well, I look forward to showing these books, etc. And because that book, for example, was all about paintings and pictures. And as Victor Tinkle, his friend from University Art School, Algoma, or the Art School of Ontario, he said, the narrative is secondary. The picture is what it's all about.
That's right. 1,000 words.
Yeah. So.
And then the third book that you have up on your website is How Beautiful Was My Valley. Now, again, that's nonfiction.
Yeah.
And it's the subtitle is My Magnificent North. So what prompted that book?
Well, actually, most of that book was actually written when I wrote my first family book, because I included in it much of my early life, etc. But what happened was that I was talking to my public school and high school friends up in the Sioux and so on, and they said, "Geez, I'd love to read that." And I said, "Well, this is, The other ones have a lot of other stuff, and it's a personal book as such. So they said, well, geez, if you could, do something about that, that would be great. And the other thing was that I had such a joyous and a wonderful youth and childhood as such. And the world today is so sour, for lack of a better word.
It's different. It's a different world. You're right.
So I thought it would be nice to write a book about happiness, and and my youth was very happy, and also to capture a different era of life that is now long gone as such, and but also to share the many things that is so special about Sylvan Valley, because I don't know what it is about that place, but I'm not the only one who has said, gee, I grew up in Sylvan Valley and it was special as such.
Yeah.
There was something magic about it. And even though we didn't have necessarily a lot of money, etc., and so on, like Allison Fountain, as such, says, one of the Holmbees, I'm from the valley, says, I for some reason I thought I saw the world in rose-colored glasses there as such, and there wasn't a lot of money, but everything was good, and although originally people were prospecting for silver in Sylvan Valley, there's far better things than silver and gold in the valley.
Absolutely. And you know what? I say this all the time. People are paying huge bucks to have a cottage nowadays, or to have a lot in a trailer park, where they can go with their trailer or camper. And it's funny how much money we'll spend to unplug and get some more simple.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no, no TV out there. There's no wireless. The kids entertain themselves with nature, and it's funny how, back in the day, when you're talking about, that was just your way of life, where now people are paying big bucks for that way of life.
No, that is very true, and it's so that's why I published that book, and indeed I supplemented my early work with a lot of work on the history of Sylvan Valley. I included that in, and just to add a little more perspective on it, not just me, sort of thing, and my family as such. So.
Right. So you took out a lot of the real personal stuff, and you added a little bit of other stuff.
No, all my personal stuff is still in there.
Oh, it is still in there. You did okay.
Oh yeah. I just added a whole bunch more on the history and of the area and the area. No, the personal stuff is there.
It is still in there. Okay.
Yeah, because it's I wanted to share that. I was a little bit hesitant at the beginning, but said, there's nothing there, sort of thing, So.
Well, it's a vulnerable thing to do. You're opening your family and your life and your background up to everybody.
Well, that is true, but there was nothing in there that I worried about as such. And
no big skeletons.
No big skeletons as such. So, I just no, everything is included in there about myself and my brother and the family and all the things that we did, particularly with my brother George, who was, although we had a large family, him and I were the youngest, and we were the ones that grew up in the valley and gallivanted around, and all the things we did with the neighbors, and with the wildlife and hunting and working and going to school and fighting with one another, and all about nature's beauty up there.
How many siblings do you have?
Well, I have 3 sisters, 2 of which unfortunately, sadly, have passed away, and another sister, Tula Karhi, who lives up in Sault Ste. Marie in McLennan, and then I have a brother, George, who was my fighting partner as such, and my inspiration for the book, who lives out in BC.
Oh, okay. So do you get to see him, and how, does he get to read the books? Has he read the books?
Oh, yes. And even before I decided I was going to publish it, I said, hey, George, whether you like it or not, I'm going to publish this. And he said, oh, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Oh, that's good. It's important to have family support. What are you working on now?
Well, not much as such, but I did just finish a book for, not to publish as such, but for the family, and it's an illustrated ancestral travelogue of Finland. So
Okay.
basically, I know all the history on all the branches of my family in Finland, and I know where they lived, etc., and so on. And through the last 20, 30 years, I've traveled to Finland a lot, and I've gone to each of these places, and I've taken my own photographs as such. So what I've done is I've put all that knowledge together, so that if someday my children or my grandchildren want to, or my cousins or nephews and nieces, etc., want to go to Finland, there's your book, and it tells you not only all about Finland and the attractions in Helsinki or Turku or way up north in Rovaniemi and so on, and what's nice about that, but it also says, okay, your great-great-grandmother on your mother's side lived
Right.
there, and here's a photo of her. And so...
What a great genealogy tool for people in your family.
yeah, well, they already have all the genealogy information and a lot of the stories, but this way, if they're visiting, and hopefully they will, then they can just say, okay, here's where we'll go, and here's what my dad or my grandfather said about that place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's what a gift to the family. That's awesome. So that's just you're not going to publish that. You're not going to make that available to the public.
No, I'm not going to publish that. There's no reason not to publish it, but again, there is no reason to publish
Right,
it.
right. Well, you never know. There might be, because Finland is not real big. So you'd be surprised, of other people who share some of the similar branches of family that you do. That would be helpful for them.
Yeah, well, that's always a possibility, but it's all done other than getting it printed and all the rest, and which is a process of its own.
Yes. Yeah, no kidding.
But the other thing is that then I'm just wondering what I'm going to write about next. I guess I'll write something because I like writing, and there's only so much chasing the grandchildren and walking the dog that I can do. So.
Yeah, yeah. How do you write? There's so many different ways. Myself, if I'm at a keyboard, I'm fine because I type very, very fast. So it comes from my brain right out my fingers onto the computer. But everybody's got their own way. How do you do it?
Well, I do it at the computer, but, I spent a lot of time in business, in my business career, writing reports for the executives and all the rest of that noise, which was a good living, so
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't noise. But so I knew how to write. But the thing is, when I start to put a book together, what I do is I put together all my thoughts, so to speak, point form, just a dump, if you wish.
And you write this or like
Yes, I write it on the
longhand?
computer,
Oh, on the computer. Okay.
and it's a dump on the computer, and then I start to rearrange it, etc., and so on, and then after I sort of rearranged it, say, oh, this is what the flow will be, etc. And as much as possible, what I do is I try and tell a story from the beginning and chronologically onward and onward. So then what I do is I sit down to the computer and I just start writing. And it comes from the jotted down points that I have down there, or the research that I've done as such on that subject. And I just start writing on the keyboard, and then after quite a few drafts, then I sort of shaped it around the way I want it. And then after that, I really start taking it apart and putting it back together.
Well, it's never complete for a writer. It's never complete. It's
True.
always got some polishing to do. If you wanted it perfect, it will never be finished.
Yeah. No. My friend in writing is my computer and Word perfect. Oh, yeah.
Now, have any of your books been translated into Finnish?
No. There's the Karjala Story might have been translated, but it's 520 20 pages. And, I mean, I'd have to find a publisher and an agent and all that noise, and that's a journey unto itself.
That is a journey. So you've always gone the self-publishing route?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I sort of tinkered away a little bit, anybody around here that might want to publish it and so on. And I said, okay, I'm just basically doing it for myself, and
Right.
I'm also doing it for my family, and I'm also doing it for those people who want to know about that subject and as such. And so as a result, it's all self-published. Yeah.
Right, right. And where can one get your books?
Well, the books can be, if you go to my website, it's, of course, www.karltuira.com, and Karl Tuira is spelled Karl. T like in Tom, you like in uncle, I like in Indian, R like in rabbit, A like in apple.
Thank you.
I learned to do that very early in life because nobody could spell our name as such. And
well, and nobody can. If you see it in print, I had to ask you, how do you pronounce your name? Because Finn names are tough. I'm really good at reading and pronouncing, foreign names, but Finn is tough.
But the answer to that is go to the website,
Yeah.
and you will see links to Amazon, actual links to Amazon US or Canada to buy it. Or if you wish, you can send me an email or through my contact form on my website, and I will get back to you. And if you want to buy it, I'll send you a copy.
You'll make it happen.
Yeah. Oh no, that's what I've been doing for the Carmichael, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and other books. But you can also get it simply through Amazon, and someday, or some months and some weeks rather, through some of the stores in the Sioux.
Yes, I hope to see that. We'll try to get you in contact with the right people here in Sault Ste. Marie, so you can have your book here. If somebody came to you, if a writer of nonfiction came to you, with asking for help, what are some pieces of advice would you give to these people? Being the historian, being a genealogist, what would be important pieces of advice would you give them to help them on their way?
Well, nonfiction to begin with, you should understand your subject, the basics of your subject, and even more if possible. But you should understand your subject, and then after that, once you start writing it, then you should go in depth into your subject and draw upon everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because in all my books, that's what I did. For example, I went through all 400 of Carmichael's photos, and I went through all his records and all the rest. But the basic first thing is understand your subject to a certain extent, and then, as applicable, develop your knowledge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly as you go through it, start writing or just jotting down the information, and preferably on the computer, because then you can fool around with it and massage it. So, but in nonfiction, make sure that your facts are correct, and nobody is 500% correct, but you should at least be 99% correct.
Yes, that would be nice when you're writing nonfiction. So you almost have to become a student of of the subject matter that you've sort of chosen to write about.
This is very, very true. So then, therefore, you should be passionate about your subject as such. I was passionate about Bob's art. I was passionate about the history of Karjala and of Finland. And now I give guest lectures to the University of Toronto Finnish Studies and so on.
Oh, so, wow. That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad to have you on today. I know we had been talking back and forth, so I'm glad we got you on a phone interview, even though your poor dog. Now, what's her name?
It's Roxy.
Okay, yeah, we got to give Roxy a shout out. Hope Roxy feels better soon, and you can make it up to the Sioux sometime this summer, and we'll hopefully be seeing your books around.
Yes, definitely. I will be up there, and because it's a wonderful country up there and near and dear to my heart. And I still even have family and friends up there.
Yeah, you can't forget the friends. Don't forget the friends, for goodness sakes.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Karl Tuira, author, historian, art aficionado. Go to his website, karltuira.com, which is spelled KarlTuira.com. And you can find all about his books and how to get them if you want them, and the subject matter steering towards Finn and art.
This is true.
Yeah.
And there's even bunches of reviews there. So.
Oh, we love bunches of reviews.
Oh, while I finish,
yeah.
I got the absolute compliment for my Sylvan Valley book, and one of the old people in the valley passed away, and I knew her very well, and so I got in touch with her son, who I knew quite well, and gave my condolences, etc. And he said, "Well, thank you very much, Karl. You know, Pat, my mother talked about you and your book a lot, and actually, when she passed away, my daughter was reading to her from my book, from your book, How Beautiful Was My Valley."
That is a huge, wow. You must have
so
really...
that made it worthwhile
Yep.
to write the book right there, because books you never make any money at, but my God, excuse me, but it
You made
really,
a difference. You made a difference.
Me feel great and made it all worthwhile.
I bet. Well, thanks for sharing that, for sure. I love ending on an awesome note. So thank you, Karl, for joining us today.
Stay well. Thank you.
Yes, and you've been listening to The Book Cover. I'm Lisa Tucker on The Borderline, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover.
Hello, this is Karl Tuira. I'm talking to Borderline Radio, specifically talking with Lisa Tucker of The Book Cover. I'm an author, so historian, and I'm delighted to be talking with Lisa about my book.